Hi everybody, welcome back. Today is Wednesday, so we're gonna do a YA Wednesday. And actually, it's really funny, I already had the book in mind for filming tonight, and this will be in a couple weeks when you actually see this from when I filmed it. But today I got a comment on YouTube on one of my old videos from back in 2015 in like May, I think it was, that was written by the same author of the book that I'm going to talk about today. Said that they saw this book in a bookstore while they were on holiday and weren't sure if they wanted to get it or not, so they Googled the title really quick, found my video and watched it, and based on my review they decided to get the book. And they're reading it right now and they really like it. So that was basically my goal of doing booktube videos, is to get more people to read books that they were on the fence about or had never heard of, and to get them to read them and love them. So excellent. That book was The Scandalous Sisterhood of Prickwillow Place by Julie Berry. And today I'm going to talk about Julie Berry's newest book, which is called The Passion of Dolssa. The Passion of Dolssa is very, very different from The Scandalous Sisterhood, but I don't know, I think I might have liked The Passion of Dolssa more. So if you remember, you can go watch my previous video about The Scandalous Sisterhood, but it's not a farce, but it's a comedy of errors, or it's like a screwball comedy set in a girls' finishing school, and there's murder and they're trying to cover it up, and it's great. There are like kind of spooky elements and a mystery and silly elements, and my favorite thing, female friendships. The Passion of Dolssa has a historical setting and has lots of awesome female friendships, but it is not a screwball comedy by any stretch of the imagination. The Passion of Dolssa takes place in 1241 in the area that is now Provence, the Provence region of France. The main characters are Dolssa, who we hear about, who is a young noblewoman who is extremely devout in her Catholic faith, and she is kind of revered by everyone around her, and she was beloved by her father and her mother. So basically in the 1240s up until way too recently, there were only two big choices for especially noble women to make with their lives. They could get married, or they could join a convent and live a life of celibacy and chastity away from the prying eyes of the material world. Dolssa doesn't want to do either of those. She wants to stay outside of the convent, but she wants to live a life devoted to God, and she actually has a very personal relationship with God in that she sees him, she calls him her beloved, and she sees Jesus and he appears to her. And in the 1240s, people like this were not like you'd see them every day, but they were pretty common, and they enjoyed a period of prestige amongst like the faithful, and then the church really cracked down on it and said only the people that we say are saints can be saints, only the way that we see God is the right way to see God. So then they went out and searched out these people and accused them of heresy, and they burnt most of them at the stake and in other horrible ways. Not a great time for the church, I say as a Catholic. So that was a really hard part of this book. But so the story focuses on Dolssa, but also a peasant girl named Botia, who is a matchmaker in a tiny seaside village, and she runs a tavern with her two sisters, and their drunk stepfather kind of lives upstairs in the loft, and they just run the place. And Botia runs across Dolssa while Dolssa is on the run from the inquisitors. So they take it upon themselves to hide her in their tavern, and they have to keep her hidden. But that's not very easy in a small town, and it is especially not easy to keep a woman hidden in a small town when she starts performing miracles. Just from that description, you can tell that The Passion of Dolssa is wildly different than The Scandalous Sisterhood, but is so good. The attention to detail and the world that Julie Berry is able to bring alive in this book is incredible. I love historical fiction. I don't usually read as far back as the 13th century. So reading about, 1241 and the way she describes the village and all the people in the village, there's a lot of very universal characters that you see throughout literature and throughout history, and they're present here. She also brings in and explains in not super pedantic ways or super, really spelled out, like, this is what we did, but in very natural ways she explains the culture and the way that they lived back then. She also uses a lot of lingo that is completely gone these days. Bottia refers to her sisters as sores, which are her sisters. I listened to the audiobook of this, and I think that is the way that you should probably read this book, because there are a lot of words that I would not have thought to pronounce in the ways that the reader pronounced, and I think that really added an extra bit to it. And there are two different readers. There's one for Dolssa and one for Bottia, and they're both excellent. The female friendships. So obviously there's the female friendship between Bottia and Dolssa. They come from completely different worlds. But Dolssa was raised very wealthy. She was kind of pampered, even though she led a simple life and was really devout. And she's not like full of herself or anything, but she definitely lived in a different world from Bottia and her sisters, who kind of, before they owned a tavern, kind of made ends meet however they could, stealing things, making stuff up, whatever. Their mother was a courtesan, and they just completely different. They have very different personalities. And so there's their friendship. So even though they're so different, Bottia is a very loving person, and she likes to take care of the people that she cares about. And so she finds this, she calls her little bird. She finds this, sick person out in a ditch basically, and she takes her in and she saves her, and they bond, and it's beautiful. There's also Bottia's relationship with her two sisters, her younger sister and her older sister, who are very different as well in temperament, and she cares about them so much, and she does things to keep them safe that are amazing, and I don't want to go into anything. She has a friendship with a local woman in town as well, an elderly woman who owns a bunch of vineyards, and she's very wealthy in their town. And they have a really mutually respectful relationship. So Bottia is a matchmaker, and she hooks people up in the village and finds women husbands and stuff like that. And so she's kind of an entrepreneur, and then this woman who owns the vineyard is also an entrepreneur. And so they have this kind of, even though there's a big age gap, they have this kind of level that they're on that I really enjoyed. So then you're seeing women of different ages respecting each other and getting along. And that older woman employs Bottia because she doesn't have any children of her own, to go find her nephews who live in a town several towns over, and bring them to her so that they can be her sons, so they can inherit her vineyard when she dies. And then you get a little bit of a love interest going. So there's a little bit of romance, slowly. And the characters in this book, everybody, even minor characters, get a really great treatment, and you get to know people. But spoiler alert, there is a lot of sadness in this book. Dolssa's on the run from the church, and she's being dogged by a very vengeful clergyman named Lucien, and he is determined to find her and put her to death. Yeah, things don't all work out great, but it's not really a spoiler because you don't know how, and there's just no way this story can end 100% happily. But it's really interesting. It's really great. I think it's a really important part of history to learn about. I found parts of it really upsetting because I'm Catholic, and I'm a practicing Catholic, and I know that the church has done a lot of awful things, and that's something that's hard to reconcile with my faith and my heart and soul and stuff like that. So it's hard to read even fictional accounts of stuff like that has happened, and know that that's an organization that I'm part of. Yeah, so it requires a lot of soul searching. So, but I would definitely recommend it if you are someone who is religious, if you are someone who is not, if you like history. I think you would get a lot out of this book. So that was me gushing on and on about this book. I think you should definitely read it. The Passion of Dolssa by Julie Berry. That's it for me. Make sure you do all those nice things you can do on YouTube. Like this video. Comment below if you've read the book, if you managed to read The Scandalous Sisterhood. I definitely recommend both, depending on what mood you're in. And yeah, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Goodreads, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, somewhere. I'm barely on Tumblr actually. And all of those good places. Okay.